Hello my lovely humans and welcome back to another fabulous channel. I'm Jacob, Jacob Books Corner, and today we're here to talk about writing. Particularly this is a sit down video talking about how I would recommend a few different ways to write faster. Before we jump into that though, I want to quickly announce I do have a current Buffy-A-Thon going on, which is a year-long watch along and read along. The first 7 months of the year we're watching the entirety of the show. Every month equates to 1 year, so season 1 was January, season 2 being February, and so forth. We just had our first live stream for it, but in case you want to jump on that bandwagon, I'll link you guys to the announcement video for that, which will talk about everything, so you can have all the information. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into this video. I think I have 5, but if any more come to my mind, we'll also talk about those. Because some of these can be broken down into like bigger things, go ahead and talk about how I think you could write faster if you want to. Some people don't want to. Some people want to take their time and just like really revel in it. Some people want to do a fast draft. These are my recommendations if you are looking to do a fast draft, or if you're looking to do a nano outside of nano. If you guys don't know what nano is, Nanowrimo is National Writing Month. It happens every November, but also happens every April. And I want to say July? Is it April and July or April and June? I can't remember. But there's 2 months that are counted as camp nanos where you kind of do whatever you want. Those nano is writing 50,000 words in a month, and a lot of people are wondering how you could do that, especially if you're trying to hit that daily word count goal. Well, these are some really cool ways to do that. Number 1, part of the reason why nano works so well for a lot of people is because of the deadline. You have from November 1st to November 30th. You know for a fact you have to write during every single one of those days, and you can get into a routine, and your body can get adjusted to that deadline. If you have bigger deadlines, as I have, like for instance, my current project, which is called Project Sarah, its deadline for its first draft is the very end of this month, January 31st. So I have a few different documents opened up where I can track the amount of words I need to get to there, but also the fact that the impending deadline is on my soul makes me write faster. There's just something about it that even though like this deadline isn't for a publisher or an agent or something, I mean, I am my own agent, I am my own publisher in some cases, and for some books, I know for a fact that I want this book done by a certain point in time to be able to move into the next stage, and how many months I think it's going to take me to do the next stage, and so forth and so forth. For Project Sarah, it's a perfectly good example. I want to be done with January. I want to be done on January 31st, so I can outline Project Sarah to write in April, or to start the process in April is my plan for Camp Nano this year. That is what the current plan is. We'll see if it ends up equating to that or not. Knowing that I have another project that depends on me finishing this first project, I know I need to prioritize it. I know my brain needs to write it faster. I know I need to get the structure and the bones out, and so a deadline can truly do that. This works really well for if you're doing other drafts outside of the first draft as well. For instance, GSR Book 2, I have a reading, like a reread deadline on myself. I think it's Sunday. I can't remember what day that is. I want to finish the entire reread process by a certain date. Because if I just say, I'm just going to finish it in a few weeks. I didn't put a date on it. I just didn't put a time on it. Those few weeks can come by and I'm still not working on it because I don't fight any prioritization. For me personally, I need a deadline to prioritize it. So that's my first recommendation. The second one is a bit kind of harsh for you pantsers out there. I'm a plantser. I'm a mix in between, and I honestly recommend for a lot of people, if you are trying to write on a constant level and you're trying to get your daily word count or get to a certain point, planning a little bit ahead does help a ton. If you're a plantser, I recommend the 5-chapter method. That's where you plan only 5 chapters. So essentially you'll know the opening, and then you plan, then you'll be like, okay, in 5 chapters, I want the character to race here. You don't give yourself any objectives in between, and you can just do whatever you want. I've written many books this way. It's very chaotic, and the editing process is atrocious. It is a solid way to do it. Some people know the beginning and the end, but sometimes you do get kind of stuck in that middle, and it's not bad to write down a sentence or two. If you're leaving your computer one day and you're in the middle of a scene or beginning of a new scene, but you don't really know the headspace you're in, writing a sentence or two, what you think your brainstorm is already working on that next scene, it's not that bad of an idea. And that's what I mean by a simple plan. You want something to automatically start your brain to automatically start moving the wheels on the project. Because if you don't have anything, you can be stuck at blank page syndrome. You could also be stuck in a writer block, or you've been going down a pathway and you realize, oh my god, that's the wrong pathway. But if you planned a little bit ahead, you would realize that that pathway was never going to work to begin with. A little bit of planning can go the long way. I know everybody says that. I know that is a common recommendation, but that's because it works. It's because it's true. And that is the honest answer. The next one, along with planning and deadlines and stuff, in order to write faster, a fun little 3.5 or 2.5 in here is do not edit while you go. I know it's a hard thing, especially for people who are editors. It's easier to edit while you go, but if you're trying to get a draft out by a certain date, you put your deadline down, you realize, okay, I need to plan a few steps ahead. Well, if you're constantly going back and editing what you have just previously wrote, let's say the last chapter chapter or whatever it might be, it just doesn't make any sense in the long run. Because here's the thing that changed my mind about editing while I write, the thing that made it seem like, okay, I don't really need to edit while I write, and it was truly like mind bending, and I wrote so many words after it so fast because I didn't feel the pressure of doing it, is the fact that once, for people who are writing a first draft and they've never written a second or third or fourth draft, they've never done revisions, they've never done rewrites, they don't understand that those words just don't matter. And once you get into your body and you understand, oh my gosh, these words that I'm writing, that I'm spending so many aching hours on making them perfect, well, yeah, that sentence could carry over to the next draft for sure. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that the majority of those words are not. You're going to rewrite a lot of those sentences. You're going to rewrite a lot of those paragraphs because there's still a lot of structural changes. You'll change characters' names. You'll change places in your novel. You'll change whole entire moments because you're realizing that's a plot hole or something. And then you spend achingly hours on that section that no longer matters. There's nothing you can pull from there because you changed it all, which is it's a high possibility when you're doing revisions. It's a sad possibility, but it's super high. One of the biggest things when I walk out of a first draft and I do my reread a few weeks later, which is always what I recommend doing a reread for. That's a different video if you want to talk about revisions. I always sit down and do a reread, and I do a re-chapter outline to make sure I don't have any structural changes. And as soon as I move one character from chapter 7 to chapter 4, everything changes. And it's just how it works. And so sticking on those words so much, it can be very detrimental, and it's not helping you get that first draft out to jump into the parts that you're looking forward to, the editing parts. Anybody who normally edits while they go, who love editing, I have learned, because of several of my writing friends who don't edit while they go, they don't typically enjoy the editing process as much as the people who do. So I do promise that thing is coming. It's just not there yet. The next one is a controversial one for sure. And some people are gonna be like, no, I'm never gonna do that. You nasty person. And that's fine. As someone who decided to start using this as a method, it kind of changed the game. I went from writing maybe, I don't know, 1,000 words an hour to like 2,500 words an hour on a good day. That's how much of a game changer. Sure, it depends on what you're working on, but like if you're in it and you're in sync and you're just going and the words are flowing, it changes the game. So I don't do everything, but I'm going to recommend both methods because I think it's very important, and some people do recommend it. And so let me tell you. That is to use Comic Sans. A lot of people hate Comic Sans, I understand, but it does kind of look like you're handwriting, and it does kind of look like you're having fun with it. It does change your brain formula. I don't know why, but it changes your brain. Okay, Times New Roman, which I love. I love a good Times New Roman sometimes, you know. Some of my books, a lot of books are written in Times New Roman. It's a very classic font, but it feels so finished. It feels so, oh my gosh, I feel like I can't change it. I feel like when I write that word down, that is the word. Whereas Comic Sans, I don't feel that way. I feel like I could change it and be okay with it. Now, some people also change colors. My brain doesn't really work that way, so it doesn't really do anything for me. But it could do something for you to where you just change, like don't write in black, write in orange or something, and that could spark something in your head. So maybe look into that if that's something of interest to you as well. Those are controversial. Some people really hate that when people recommend that, and they don't believe writers would ever do that. The Comic Sans method changed my entire existence last year. I've never gone back, and I probably will never go back. All of my first drafts are written in Comic Sans the whole way through, and I'm not afraid to say that. I say that with my chest. I say that shit with my chest. Okay. Moving on from Ariana Grande. The next thing I talk about is writing sprints and writing challenges. They pretty much go together, but one can be funner than the other. So a writing sprint is you sit down, you put a timer on, and you race the clock for 15 minutes, which is technically kind of like a writing challenge. But if you don't feel like if you're just easing through the 15 minutes, you're just like, oh, okay, this is fun, but your brain still gets distracted, well, I recommend a few apps. I recommend the Planter app, where if you download the app, and if you're doing it, I think it's on iPhone, I think it's free, like the whole way through. Androids, I think you get to pay for the extra. One of them you have to pay for the extra, but it doesn't really matter. You build trees, you build plants and stuff as you go, and if you enable a certain setting in there, it will kill the tree if you leave the app. So you can't even physically leave the app from your phone, which can help a lot of people from like navigating. I also recommend if you're doing writing sprints, turn off your Wi-Fi. Some people need to Google things. You can Google it afterwards, put a parenthesis, say this is what I'm going to Google, and then continue onwards. Unless it's like super integral, then Google. Try your best not to Google things on that first sprint. Then once the sprint is over and you're waiting in between the next sprint, like 5 or 10 minutes, then you can go through and you can Google, sustain your story before you jump into the next sprint, and you can continue doing this back and forth. This is what I would recommend. I'd also would recommend if you have your phone or you have the thing that distracts you, put it on the other side of the room and then go write. You'd be surprised at what that will do. I used to put it on my bookshelves behind me when I would write. I would do things, I would get my speaker, I would have music music by me, but I can also be like super away from my phone. It's crazy how much the phone will distract your brain. If these are still not working and you want so much more of a challenge, well, I do have a website. I'll link it down below. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's like Fighter Words. This was recommended by Sarah LeBrat, who I adore and would recommend many reading or writing tips from her. If you want to, I'll just link her channel down below for sure. She had recommended a one where you write on the website is what you do, but your HP depends on how much writing you get and you're trying to hit a certain word count goal. That could also be very beneficial. I'll link it down below. It was really cool, really fun. I've done it in the past 2 days and I've enjoyed the process while doing so. Then the other one I recommend is the Kate Kavanaugh stair step method. I've talked about this before. I have a whole video talking about the stair step method. There are 2 ways to do it. You can either go down the stairs or up the stairs. So essentially you're starting out with what you think you can write in 20 minutes. Okay, sometimes people time themselves, so you can do whatever you want. You think what you can start out with 20 minutes, you put that down and you set a 20-minute timer and you race to get the amount of words you think you can write in 20 minutes. If you can't, you put the number, if you're stuck there, and then you do another 20-minute sprint, but now your new goal is your last, whatever you got last. Then you continue to work your way down the steps and you'll do a 15-minute next, then a 10-minute, and then a 5-minute. And then if you're still going, you're still feeling the writing mood, you can flip it and you can go back up the stairs, starting with a 5-minute, a 10-minute, a 15, and a 20-minute, and so forth and so forth. It is something I would highly recommend, and I can normally get a nano word count goal in that exact writing challenge. The last one I recommend, and I would say one of the most important, is make sure your writing space is clutter free. Make sure it's how you feel comfortable writing. I know if my writing space has this or this or this, or my brain can get really distracted because X, Y, and Z, I'm not gonna be writing. I'm gonna be thinking about all these other things. And so I always clean my spaces. So I recommend cleaning your space. If you always need a candle, make sure you light your candle. That candle doesn't seem like it makes a difference, but it can make a difference. If you always have water with you and you decide you didn't want water that day, it could be the reason why you're not really writing that day. Whatever your routine is, make sure you stay with your routine. I think it's so beneficial. But let me know in the comments down below if you know of any other writing ways to write faster. I found out one on the internet one day where it said if you turn down the brightness of your computer all the way and you write as if you can't see, that will help. I have no idea if that works or not, but if it does, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to maybe try that for a video. Let me know if any of these methods worked for you and if any methods you would recommend to other writers such as me or anybody else. And I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks for watching and goodbye.